I hereby sentence the convicts to life imprisonment.
We disagree with the judgment vehemently. How can you convict a man for making mere broadcasts from a location that was never named?
You can't be a judge. You don't know law. You don't know law.
What happens if Nnamdi Kanu dies in DSS detention?
So they're basically trying to keep me alive. So when they calculate that I'm about to give up, that my heart is about to pack up, they will now say go.
This video may sound weird to you, but if time is not taken, it could actually be the reality of Igbos and Nigeria at large.
Your own constitution you don't respect. Supreme Court judgment you don't respect. Then why are we the court of law? Why are we the court of law, I ask?
No doubt, the name Nnamdi Kanu is a name that unsettles the powerful and divides a nation. Not because of what he has done, but because of what he represents. Nnamdi Kanu, to some, is a freedom fighter. To others, a threat, just because he represents something far more dangerous than the tyrant he's been portrayed to be by the press, the blogs, and the media. Let's bring this to your notice. Years in DSS custody, the court's rulings have been ignored. His health is deteriorating. And now, the question no one dares to ask out loud is, if he never makes it out alive? This video is not just a story, it's a warning. What will happen to Biafran dream? What happens to the Nigerian soul if Nnamdi Kanu is not released healthy and alive? In this video, we'll go deep to the story behind the man, the movement, and the mystery that could shake the nation if time is not taken by the Nigerian government over the court ruling.
I agitate for Biafra, my right to agitate. My right!
To dive deep, don't forget to like and subscribe as we ride on this mystery from the start to the possible end. Remember, this video is not a defense to Nnamdi Kanu's method. Rather, it's a warning which is brutal and urgent to recognize the consequences of a government that may be mistaking silence for peace. Now, let's go through how it all began. Nnamdi Kanu was born in Isiama, Afaruku, Umuahia during the Biafran War. His childhood was lived in the corpses of failed succession that was led by Odumegwu Ojukwu. Having been educated in the UK, he became uneasy by Nigerian continuous ethnic marginalization which was prevalent especially against the Igbos. Then in 2009, Kanu launched a pirate frequency station that evolved into a technological weapon of his idea against the Igbo marginalization called the Radio Biafra. In 2012, he founded the movement known as Ipob, the indigenous people of Biafra, so as to mobilize Igbo youths towards self-determination. This act of self-determination simply means the right of a people to decide their own future, including whether they want to be part of a country or form a new one. Nnamdi Kanu didn't call for self-determination because he wanted to make noise or trigger national chaos, but to let these youths know that the act is a recognized international right that is enshrined in the United Nations Charter, also in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. This charter clearly states that people have the right to determine how they are governed, and that includes the right to seek self-rule or even break away from a larger country if they feel oppressed or marginalized in any way. For instance, Catalonia wants to separate from Spain. Scotland held a referendum to leave the United Kingdom. South Sudan got independence from Sudan, and Eritrea broke away from Ethiopia. But if this is within the rights of Nnamdi Kanu and his followers to break away from the country, why is the Nigerian government resisting this Self-Determination Act? Well, it's probably because a successful Biafran self-determination case would be seen as a door or precedent for other tribes like Niger Delta, Middle Belt, and even parts of North also attempt their own independence. That's why the government often responds with brutal force to this movement, even if it means holding the founder in custody for as long as they deny him his fair trials. When Nnamdi Kanu was arrested in 2015, the government expected the usual silence from his followers, but they weren't silent at all. In fact, their cry became global from the movement around the world. After nearly 2 years in custody, he was granted bail under harsh conditions in 2017. Among all these conditions was him being banned from the press. But shortly, as though they regretted setting him free in the first place, the military, under Operation Python Dan, stormed his family compound, but Kanu vanished. The videos that went viral online showed military vehicles stationed outside his house, but the government denied they weren't involved in this raid. Nnamdi Kanu remained a ghost for over a year as no one knew where he was. In 2021, he was arrested in Kenya. The arrest was certainly unconstitutional and equally a violation of national law with no extradition treaty observed. He was blindfolded, drugged and flown to Nigeria, but Kenya denied having knowledge of this incident. In 2022, the Court of Appeal discharged Kanu of all terrorism charges and ordered his release, but the government ignored it, making a legal process in the country of no value. They continue to file fresh cases against him instead, to keep him indefinitely in the DSS detention. His lawyers have been harassed, his court hearings continue to get postponed, and even his family got blocked from visiting him in many cases. So the question is he being prosecuted or persecuted? When did the government become higher than the law? This chapter comes to answer the question in this video. What happens if Nnamdi Kanu doesn't survive the DSS detention over the unlawful detention? The recent report from his legal team shows that he has high blood pressure, heart issues, and lack access to necessary medication, which has been ignored or buried under bureaucracy. The man slowly dies due to this intentional delay. His detention conditions as well are far from human. They confined him to a single cell under constant surveillance, where he is denied basic human dignity. And if he dies under this watch, will the government say it was an accident, or will they take responsibility for their murder? What is likely to happen is that the Southeast will burn. His death could galvanize thousands of angry, disenfranchised Igbo youths who will use his blood as an ink, an anthem, and cause for violent vengeance. They were able to detain one man, but they may not be able to stop another civil war. Why the man will become a legend? The Biafran dream, which looks quiet now, may be reignited in rage, and the Southeast will pose the killings of an agitator without fair trials as justification to the inhuman chaos they would cause by then. Seeing that Boko Haram leaders who were caught at a point were forgiven and rehabilitated, even bandits were negotiated with, but an Igbo agitator calling for self-determination within his rights is kidnapped in another man's country, caged and starved and even denied trial. And like I said earlier, it will only call for something brutal and tragic for the country who may never know peace for a very long time. This detention simply makes it clear to Nigerians that our voices are only valid when we support the crisis being inflicted on us by our politicians. When we choose to vote them in, praise them and remain silent, then we are doing well. But if our voices are used to disagree, fight or resist, the peril upon us. We get thrown behind bars and aren't given a chance for a fair trial. But there is still time. And if I must say, Nnamdi Kanu is barely alive and the government still has time to act. Either try him openly and fairly, or release him based on the court rulings already passed, and stop pretending that this is a national security case that is highly sensitive, whereas the bigger problem holding our country down is among our leaders. Let justice be served to the man, not by delay, not by silence, not by starvation and isolation, but by the law, by fairness and by truth. But then again, I ask, what if Nnamdi Kanu dies under the watch of the DSS? What will happen? What's your take? For more deep theories, do like, subscribe. See you in our next upload. Bye for now.